I think it's really natural nowadays to feel misunderstood, whether that's by your parents or your friends or some specific segment of society at large. I think everyone has felt this way at some point, like they're invisible in a way, because who they really are is unseen and misunderstood. All the while, people will jump to conclusions and form false perceptions of who you are and what you're doing. In a way, this is sort of a universal human experience. Practically everyone has felt some amount of miscommunication throughout their life, whether it's feeling judged by others for your hobbies or how you spend your time, or feeling alienated over some incident in your life that people misunderstand. A lot of stress and isolation can come from this experience of being misunderstood. I guess at the end of the day, there are limits to what language has the capability to express. Even if the people we're closest to, there often isn't a way to help someone see you the way you see yourself, or help them understand you the way you understand yourself. Even for the people you're closest to, like a best friend or a spouse, there will always be some limit to what you can express and how much of each other you can see. And so for people who feel strongly alone and misunderstood already, this solitary truth about language and reality can be traumatizing. Like, in a way, nobody will ever understand you. It isn't even possible because words will never do justice to emotions and intent, and the depth and complexity of a human being can't be expressed eloquently and completely in so few words. And so in a way, zooming out, if you are misunderstood or emotionally distant from even your loved ones, then it's no surprise that people you know less or have invested less time in will get the wrong impression of you also, or take offense where you don't mean anything. For an example of what I mean with all this, imagine that you're back in school. You just transferred somewhere new where nobody knows you and everyone is forming a first impression. Imagine that behind the scenes your parents just got a divorce, your family is struggling, and your home life is full of stress, and you're not very good at handling those emotions. Let's say you act kind of grumpy and standoffish at school. People try to introduce themselves and be your friend, but you unintentionally brush them off and push them away as you're too focused on yourself and the moment to care. Suddenly, everyone in the school has some specific impression of you. They've already made up their minds. They have some bad taste in their mouth due to this shared experience of interacting with you and coming away from it with a negative emotion. Before you know it, everyone is exaggerating your attitude, making stories about you behind your back, growing closer by using you as a collective verbal punching bag behind closed doors. By the time you realize the way everyone sees you, it feels too hard to change their perspective or clear up the misunderstanding and help them see you for who you really are. And in a way, you realize that they don't care who you really are, because human nature is limited and we can only ever really know one another to a certain extent. You self-isolate, ignore what they say, and make a few friends who learn to understand you just a bit better, who can see into your life and finally get why you were acting the way you were. You're happy because you feel less alienated, less isolated than you did before. Of course, there are still people who don't understand you, but you figure that it's just their lack of perspective which causes that disconnect. This isn't a real story. This isn't like something that happened, but it's based on something that happened to me. I really did experience something like this when my parents divorced. I really have struggled throughout my life with feeling misunderstood, and it's come up in a variety of different ways, even aside from this. As I've said throughout, there's only so much that can realistically be expressed with language. Some experiences are so unique or personalized that nobody will ever be able to understand them unless they can sympathize and have been through something very similar. When I was younger, I developed some pretty severe health issues, and although we went to doctors for years and they proved that the symptoms I described were real, they could never give me a clear diagnosis, something to really latch onto and say, this is what I'm dealing with. My family often misunderstood and treated me poorly because of this. They often assumed I was exaggerating how I felt, or put me down by how it affected our daily lives. For so long, I felt alone in this inexpressible suffering I was feeling, like nobody could relate or even believed me, and I was just alone in the world. In this case, it wasn't just that they had the wrong impression of me and thought I was weak or a liar or exaggerating things to be dramatic, but it was also just the fact that I wished I could be seen and understood by the people I loved, although I knew that they could never actually feel the way I was feeling physically. You see, nobody's lives are entirely alike, and in a way that experiential difference accounts for a lot of the issues in the world. From one generation to the next, from the old to the young, rich to the poor, a difference in someone's experience is always going to produce some amount of prejudice in certain people. We jump to conclusions because we can only see things from our perspective, and we become jaded and arrogant to some extent, and believing the world is as it presents itself to us uniquely. Parents often grow up in different worlds than their kids, so they have a hard time understanding why their kids are so different than they were. And that misunderstanding sometimes boils over into negativity and enforces that feeling in their child like nobody understands or everyone is unfair to them. No two people are ever going to respond the exact same way in the exact same situation. But if you lived somebody else's life from start to finish, everything they went through, maybe you could understand why they did what they did and agree with their choices more than you would be just looking at them from the outside. Although it can sometimes be hard to come to terms with, the reality of this world is isolation and independence. Everything can be taken away from you when it comes to your personal history and the continuity of relationships in your life. Many people throughout history have lost all of the people in their lives who knew them well, and they've been left alone, and they felt like they no longer have anyone who sees them and knows their story. No outside perspective on the way that they are. For all of you who may be watching, for anyone who may have struggled with feeling unseen or misunderstood, I want you to know that you aren't crazy, you aren't unusual, and you aren't wrong for who you are and what you believe. You're just you. You're different, because all of us are. The people in your life will never understand you the way you want them to, because in a way we're not telepathic. We can only get so far with language, and although they may love and accept you, they'll never understand you completely. It's hard to come to terms with the fact that we're alone in the world from that perspective. But cultivating a relationship and friendship with yourself, investing in treating yourself better and understanding yourself better so that you aren't as reliant on other people's perceptions of you, will genuinely fulfill you a lot more than counting on other people's perspectives to maintain that sense of self. A lot of people have one person they know, perhaps a spouse or a best friend, someone they talk with a lot who they've known for years, someone important, maybe the one person they feel truly understands them, that they rely on. I mean, this is a good thing to have, don't get me wrong, but I've also seen how sometimes those people get divorced, or say mean things, and have a falling out. And if you believe in their perception of you as legitimate above your own, you'll look at yourself differently because of what they believe about who you are. And I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right or valid compared to the depth and complexity within you entirely, their perception. It's good to have people you're close with and trust and understand on a meaningful level, but to keep the relationship healthy and free of codependence, I think it's important that all of us first learn to understand ourselves. When you know yourself and have confidence in who you are, you won't take it so personally when people attack or criticize you. You'll know who you are. You'll be secure in your ego. You'll be receptive to criticism, but unaffected by negativity and baseless insults. In a way, this is what the Stoics say, and I agree that all strife and conflict in the world, in a way, is born out of misunderstanding. The nature of life and being alive and being human, but we can do something about it. And if this video has done anything, I hope it has reminded some of us that although it's hard being misunderstood, it feels nice to accept the way we're seen and not let that outside perspective drag us down or affect us emotionally. So however hard it is to find that, it's really what we should all be looking for.